Hello to everybody. Thank you for inviting me, and it's good to be here discussing populism with such a representative list of speakers. I will look into populism from the side of a voter for populism. I try to go into his mind and see how does it feel to be a populist, rather than what are might be the rationally perceived causes for his feelings. So I'm using some of the phenomenological theory and some of the phenomenological theory of social emotions to make sense of this phenomenon. I also tried to come up with an overview of what is going on in scientific debates about populism. What are the themes what we talk about when we talk about populism, and I came up with the following. One way to see it is a new regime of truth in the domain of public discourse, and then people talk about post-truth era, about alternative facts, alternative solutions to the problems that we have, and so on. Then also here in many presentations, populism is regarded as a reaction to some real issues in social life. So let's say there is a problem with migration, and then that causes xenophobic feelings, for example, which are channeled into the populist politics. Or people talk about a segment of population that is left out and angry. Most often, these are the people who are losing out from globalization of neoliberal market economy, the factory workers or the people from rural areas. Or people talk about a new type of political players, the populist leaders, and investigate into their behavior. One more approach is to see it as a set of beliefs or a political ideology, and then we look at the rhetorical tropes that are derived from notions like Volksgeist and Volonté Générale, and then the political field is dramatized or perhaps even over-dramatized as a conflict between the true will of people and the corrupt elite. Xenophobic emotions, again, I think have been regarded as stemming, according to this view, as stemming from presented by populists then, as stemming from the heart of Volksgeist and witnessing the true yet suppressed general will of the people. And there is also a way to engage with populism by seeing it as a new way of doing politics, a change in the rules of political engagement, perhaps a new political strategy or style of action. And I would like to go into this latter option. They are of course not mutually exclusive explanations. I will argue that populism is indeed a new way of doing politics, and this new way of doing politics is obviously predominantly affective. More precisely, I think populist politics has changed the rules of how collective emotions are addressed, organized, and channeled in public debate and political performances. So when I talk about populist politics, then I mean this new way of carrying out political debate. And it is of course not just the populists who are addressing collective emotions. I think mainstream politicians are doing it more and more often, and the phenomenon is at least as old as the invention of television. Some examples of what I mean by populist politics then. Let's say we have the immigration crisis or tensions, cultural and economic tensions as a result of immigration. And then somebody proposes, already the example have been here, somebody proposes, let's build a wall between our country and Mexico. Great. The other solution, Brexit. Or Or an example from an Estonian populist politics, our right-wing national party is saying in one of the election campaigns, vote for us, we are the ones who do not let build a mosque in Tartu. Again, interesting, because nobody was never planning to build a mosque in Tartu. But these are the guys who will not let it take place anyway. Or let's have another problem. A traditional nuclear family seems to be falling apart. Now a solution proposed is, let's not, we will not let our children to be morally contaminated by gay propaganda or multicultural ideology. Let's do that. Or the same-sex marriages in Estonia should not be legalized, because again it will corrupt society. Now, if you look at these solutions, they rationally they are kind of silly, right? But they have some appeal. Now I'm asking this: what kind of appeal do they have? What is the in what way are they convincing? Or convincing is not the right word, because it refers to rational argument perhaps, but in what way these solutions can be pleasing to me? Let me also present you the change in political rhetoric between the, let's say, the traditional player in politics and the populist player. Well-known quotes. Let me try to... How to make it play. Push the button. No, that was not the button. Right.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
The United States launched a targeted operation against that compound.
They did a lot of shooting, and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You know, you think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in?
After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
He died like a dog.
But his death does not mark the end of our effort.
A beautiful dog, a talented dog.
We give thanks for the men who carried out this operation.
And I don't get any credit for this, but that's okay. I never do. But here we are.
May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And I'm writing a book. I think I wrote 12 books.
Now, there is clearly a change in style of political messaging, right? And I think a deliberate one. We cannot say that Trump is talking in the way he does because he cannot do better. I don't believe in that. He chooses to do it in the way he does, and by some reason this is appealing. Now, why it is the case that it feels good, even if you think it's wrong, even if you think it's it goes against the traditional way of, well, democratic argument as foreseen by Habermasian ideal of democracy. What people often say is that emotions should be discarded altogether, that emotions are not something that we should take into account. But that would be a wrong way to go again, I think, because politics has always been emotional, and why shouldn't it be? Because politics is about what matters. When things matter to us, then we get emotional about them, and that is why I think addressing how things are emotional to us can lead us to very effective ways of policy making. Now, there are causal answers that are often given when we, I call them causal answers for the shortness sake here, that are often given when we ask why would people vote for populists, or why would they find these examples, this way of talking, pleasing, or those alternative solutions, why would they find them exciting? And I'm simplifying here. One of the causal answers is that there are these angry, dissatisfied people who channel their feelings. Then people losing from advances of globalized market economy. Then there might be the traditionalists who believe in the wisdom of Volksgeist, and I think it is true actually that the wisdom of Volksgeist, if there is any, it really doesn't reveal itself in the bureaucratic discourse of professionalized politicians or parliament committees. I think clearly the bureaucratization and professionalization of politics has led to the situation where nobody really does believe that the general will is speaking in the mouth of politicians. Now, maybe we shouldn't even believe that, but the other question is, do we want or do we not want to have this kind of will represented, again, emotionally? And then there is a resentment argument, that there are the ones who want to revenge existing political elites, and they are also right about the fact that the existing political elites cannot be defeated by rational arguments. They cannot be defeated by rational arguments simply because they will then form a committee, and there will be so many rational arguments that unless you spend your life on that, you really cannot enter to the dialogue with the mainstream politics, or it's very difficult. But anyway, if I'm oversimplifying now, but these causal answers are built up in a way that supports the political representation argument, which in an oversimplified form can be presented as follows. There are angry people. Now they've gained a voice, and they are represented in politics, and this is good because it advances democracy. For example, Marie Le Pen is saying to be a populist is simply to honor the will of free people. I think this view that populism is the advancement of democracy because there are people who feel this way and now they're represented and have gained and have become players in the political field, it is shared by most of the theorists about populism, and I think by most even in mainstream politics. Now, I think it's a mistaken view. It's a mistaken view because it would work only if we think that in the first place there were angry people who were not represented. And now they've got represented by populist politicians. But this is not how collective emotions work. I will push my argument a bit too far in order to make it clear, but I think angry people are angry because they are represented, and as a result of their political representation, not vice versa. Why? Because it is not the case that at first I have an emotion, then I find other people who have a similar emotion, we form a group, and we start executing political power. Collective emotions have a different nature. They are not individual emotions added to one another one by one. They have a different constitution. And let me say the same about group membership. When I'm joining a group that shares a certain mood, or an emotion, or a set of emotion, it is not the case that I first have a certain set of feelings, find other people with similar feelings, and then we have a group feelings that is the sum of individual feelings. The opposite. When I experience a collective emotion, I experience it because I have joined the group, not vice versa. What is the nature of collective emotions then? In order to see that, we need to distinguish between individual emotions, collective emotions, and political emotions. And I will do that now from the phenomenological point of view. Individual emotions really do have this simple structure of subject and object, and this object is given me in the mood or in the framework of this feeling. Let's say I'm afraid of this particular dog barking at me, then there is this dog, then it's me and my feelings about that, this frightened state of mind. So we can say that individual emotions are episodes of my individual mental life when I feel something about something. Collective emotions are also individual mental events. I'm not claiming the existence of collective mind here, but they are intersubjectively constituted and they are situated within social relationships. And what does that mean? I'm borrowing from Ellen Berscheid here, saying that social relationships can be described as the oscillating rhythm of influence in the interaction of people that is coordinated and complementary. Coordination means that participants act, think, and feel with reference to each other's actions, thoughts, and feelings. And complementarity means that what one agent is doing, thinking, or feeling is incomplete or impossible unless and until other agent meaningfully complements it. These features of coordination and complementarity are not contingent features of experiencing a feeling, but really constituting features of experiencing a feeling. I will now offer you another example of a spreading of a collective emotion. It's really a simple model of sharing an emotion that corresponds best to the contagion model of emotion sharing. But I think we can take it as a model for the discussion in the following as well. Now I need to do the same. Have a look. It's 1 minute long. Oi. Well, what's the difference? And I'm claiming that political emotions stirred by populists are of that sort. That is, and I'm claiming that political emotions stirred by populists are of that sort. That is, they have a similar sharing mechanism. And again, let's simply see the structural difference between individual emotions and collective emotions. Individual emotions have an intentional object, that what the emotion is about. Whereas in the example we had it here, nobody knew what they are laughing at. What about is the joke, or what is really the object of that is funny? But they shared the mood, the emotion anyway, right? Now, in case of the individual emotion, it has to be the case that the intentional object that I relate to is directly experienced by me. I cannot say, for example, that, well, I'm madly in love, but I don't know with whom. Whereas I can easily say that, well, I really need for political change and politicians say about something meaningful, but I don't know what. I personally don't know what they should say. So this objectless demand for objectless feeling that requires to be satisfied is actually paradigmatic for the social and collective emotions, and that's what makes it very different from individual emotions. Now, also the content of mental episode is defined by others in case of collective emotions and not so in case of individual emotions. We know well that one and the same act, can be felt as funny by me and as offending by somebody else. Whereas in case of the collective emotion, we all share this, the way the content of the emotion is defined. I do assume, of course, in case of collective emotions, that our emotion has an object that is somehow defined by us, perhaps the group leader. But so I do assume the existence of the object. But again, it doesn't need to be given to me directly. I do not need to experience the very object of emotion. Now, let's go further. Consider two statements about collective emotions. The first is by an Egyptian, Hossam el-Hawalabi, who reported to the BBC correspondent about the situation in Cairo in the spring 2011. That was before the uprising. He said, "Over the past 4 years, the number of strikes and social unrest has been escalating, and everybody is expecting an uprising. What exactly will be the trigger? Nobody knows, but we all feel it in the air." So everybody feels in the air a certain uprising. This is the common feeling that they share in Cairo at the moment. As we know, it turned out to be true. I mean, there really was an uprising. Or think about the stock market fluctuations. When everybody feels that this stock is going to fall, then the stock is going to fall because everybody feels it, right? So this is the collective feelings that makes real things to happen. And that was maybe a similar sort of feeling that Hossam el-Hawalabi felt. Compare it with a Facebook postage. Also a claim about the collective emotion. The institution I'm working at, a university, is in decline. It is not what it used to be. People do not believe in us anymore. Even we do not believe in ourselves. We have lost our mission. We all feel it, even if we don't want to admit it. Now, in this case, the objectivity of feeling, or the fall of the university, or the decline of the university can be debated. If really everybody feels that way, then I think it's true. But what if the guy is just assuming that everybody else feels that way, but actually they are not? What if he's the only one who feels that university is in decline? Then he is simply the fool, right? The university is not in the decline, but he has these imaginary others with whom he thinks together that the university is in decline. So the validity of the claim in that case, the very truth of the claim, depends whether the others are real or imaginary. And if they are imaginary, then we have to do with a wishful thinking. If they are real, then we have to do with a political emotion. So if we want to distinguish now political emotions from collective emotions, and we need to do that because I think political emotions are all large-scale collective emotions that actually cannot be explained by the contagion model that you saw before. Why cannot they explained by the contagion model is because there are simply too many others to have a face-to-face contact with them. We are sharing political emotions with so big number of people that we have never met, or is impossible to meet all of them. But both collective and political emotions feel as the emotion of us rather than mine personally. It always feels that I join in with some kind of emotion rather than that I am feeling it and you are feeling it too, and then we are feeling it together. And what is important, and intentional object in both cases is given to and identified by us, not by me personally. But political emotions are the one where the others that make this feeling possible, that the others are not bodily present or empirically not present. The numerical value of them is very high, so that they have to be absent or imaginary. And we come to this paradoxical conclusion where my feelings, I do feel feelings of the group, but together with the absent others. Let's take the following example. I'm thinking that I'm a famous philosopher. I have this feeling. Now, what would be the truth conditions of this claim? Exactly the nature of the others, right? If everybody else thinks so, then the claim is true. If I am the only one who thinks that, and the others are just imaginary, then the claim is false, right? So, political emotions, then, are emotions that I feel together with absent others, or with imaginary others, and there is always a contest. Who is speaking in the name of how many, actually? When Boris Johnson is saying that he's standing for the British people who want to be free, then who exactly is he representing? He's representing the absent others who cannot all be together with him at the moment of speaking in this very situation of him saying that, but still they have to be constitutive of the truth of his statement. So I would claim that the desire for Brexit was not something that half of the British people individually wanted. They were made to desire it, however, by means of populist way of doing politics. The feelings came later, and political way of arguing in the name of these feelings came first. How is it possible then to stir group emotions with absent others? It is possible by using digital media platforms as affordances of such emotions. And the examples of others are always represented, almost always represented digitally, and in very small numbers in some kind of group gatherings. But still, we are in the situation when we form feelings that I feel individually together with absent others. And I think populism as a way of doing politics is simply a way of managing these collective emotions with absent others. Thank you.